So come this Thursday, June 25th, we're getting season 2 of Doom Patrol, and I recently just sat down and watched the first season for the very first time. So in this video, I'm gonna let you all know what I thought about the first season. I'm gonna give you kind of my preview of season 2. We're gonna talk about that and much more. Doom Patrol is a team of traumatized and downtrodden heroes, each of whom have suffered a horrible accident and gave them superhuman abilities, but also left them scarred and disfigured. The members of the team have found their purpose through the Chief and have come together to investigate some of the world's weirdest phenomenons. After the Chief mysteriously disappears, though, the reluctant heroes find themselves called to action by Cyborg, who comes to them with a mission that they cannot refuse. Doom Patrol, part support group, part superhero team, is a band of superpowered freaks fighting for the world that wants nothing to do with them. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here today with a new TV review for a show that came out about a year ago, but I finally got a chance to check it out. That is Doom Patrol Season 1 on HBO Max. In this video, what I want to kind of do is I want to talk about the first season without spoilers. So if you were like me and didn't see the first season, I'm going to initially let you know what I thought of it and if you should check it out. Then I'm going to kind of transition into spoilers. So for those that have seen the season, I got some questions. I want to know what you all thought about certain things and what you hope to see in the future of this show. And then kind of finishing out the video, I want to talk about that trailer, what I want to see in Season 2, and what I hope to see in Season 2. So that's kind of the breakdown in this video. I'm going to leave the time codes in the description below. But before we dive into this fun video, as you all can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my social media accounts. If new to this channel, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Helps out the channel tremendously, but I also really appreciate it. And last but not least, this is going to be some fun discussions, guys. So in the comments, number one, if you haven't seen the show, let me know what you thought of this video, and if you will watch the show before Season 2, and if you want to see Season 2, then for those fans that have seen this season and are excited for Season 2, let me know your pros, your cons, what you hope to see, your fandom. Did you know about Doom Patrol? Is it one of your favorite kind of groups of misfits on the DC streaming app and on HBO, and just kind of your overall thoughts? And then again, for those fans of the show, what do you want to see for Season 2? What are some of your villains, some of the heroes you want to see get interacting with the Doom Patrol? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, let's have some fun discussions in the comment section. So again, this video is going to have time codes, it's going to have some non-spoilers, spoilers, discussion. This is going to be a fun video, so bear with me. This might be a 15-20 minute video. We'll see where this lands, but nevertheless, let's start off with kind of my initial thoughts. No spoilers. First and foremost, again, last February, the TV show premiered on the DC app. I'm a DC fan. You know, I love the comics, the movies, the shows, all that stuff. But the DC streaming service really wasn't selling me, right? It had Titans, which I've heard some good things, some bad things about. And I don't know, hopefully maybe HBO Max puts it on this platform and I'll check out Titans. But that show didn't really sell me. I knew nothing about Doom Patrol at all. The only person that I knew from Doom Patrol, and someone that's not even really a Doom Patrol member in the comics, is Cyborg. So I was kind of like, we'll see, you know, whatever the case may be. But I've heard some good things about the Harley Quinn show. But nevertheless, the app really hasn't sold me. So it wasn't until last month when HBO Max premiered and I saw Doom Patrol was on the app, and I heard that Doom Patrol Season 2 was going to be on HBO Max. I'm like, you know what? I'm a fan. Let me see what these weird misfits group of heroes and villains have to do and what they have to offer, because I heard really great things about Doom Patrol. So going into this, I was really excited to see what the show is all about. I love some weird shows. I love a group of misfits getting together. I think of, obviously, you know, you have X-Men, which is one of the most well-known, you know, groups of superheroes that are just misfits and kind of, you know, freaks and all that stuff that people call them within their universe. And then you think of shows like Legion. You think of shows, you know, movies like I said, Suicide Squad. So I'm always a sucker for that. Guardians of the Galaxy is another example. So I'm always a sucker of seeing these different people that don't really mesh well come together for the greater good and save the world and save, you know, their friends and things of that nature. So that was kind of my selling point. And also, like I said, I'm a big Cyborg fan, so I was excited to see a television version of Cyborg. I never watched, you know, Smallville, so I don't know if this is the first time we've seen Cyborg on the small screen. I know he made an appearance in Titans, and also we know Ray Fisher to be in the Justice League film and BVS. So I was excited to see this iteration of Cyborg. So starting off with the positives, guys. Again, this is for the people that haven't seen the show. I really had a fun time with the show. I didn't love it as much as a lot of people have, and this is one of those examples where I've heard nothing but great things about the show, so it was a little like almost overhyped, but I definitely enjoyed it. I'll get into my criticisms later on, but First thing off the bat, the thing that just really drives the show is the characters, right? Some more than others. In those in particular characters, number one, Jane was my favorite character of the show. Diane Guerrero, who I'm familiar with her work from, Orange is the New Black, and that's kind of like the only thing I've seen her in. And she was great in that show. And from the seasons I watched, I didn't finish that show. I think I missed like the last 2 seasons. But in this show, she did a hell of a job. If you guys aren't too familiar with Jane, she has 64 personalities. You get some James McAvoy split type of stuff going on. And each of those 64 personalities have their own superpowers. So that is just an incredible character within itself, and she did such a great job in this season. She is essentially the heart and soul of the Doom Patrol, right? She has her annoying moments, she has her heroic moments, she has her kind of evil moments, kind of depressing moments. There was just so many things about the Jane character that just really, every time she was on screen, she stole the scene for me. I just love the performance by her. I love her origin story. I love her power abilities. I love her interactions with all the different Doom Patrols. I love her interacting with the villains. Such a fascinating character, and I'm really excited to see what they do with her in future seasons. But she was my number one. Matching up with that number one is my number two, and that is Cliff Steele, who is played and voiced by and also played by Brendan Fraser, who I grew up with The Mummy and seeing him in those older kind of comedy movies in the 90s, and kind of, he faded out there in the mid-2000s, but he's kind of back now in this show, and I know he was on some other shows recently, but man, Brendan Fraser did a great job in this role. Him and Jane, their dynamic, they were there's a lot of different pairings within this show, whether it be Larry and, Rita, and seeing Cyborg and his dad. So seeing Jane and Cliff throughout the show was my highlight. I just love their dynamic. I love kind of, without giving too much away of Cliff, but loving how he looks at Jane as somewhat of a daughter, and maybe the reverse for Jane, looking at him as someone as a father figure and kind of someone to look up to, because he's always there for her and doing the things that he did for her in the show. So I love their dynamic. And then rounding out my top three, one of my favorite unknown villains, Mr. Nobody, Alan Tudyk. I'm wearing a Joker shirt, as you guys can see now. I've looked at his filmography, and I'm very familiar with Alec, but I was just curious, did he ever play the Joker? Because he had the moments in this show. Mr. Nobody is seriously one of my favorite villains that I never knew anything about. Like, he is the abilities to have multi-dimensions, warping, and mind control, and taking off, possessing people. Like, this guy, his powers were like very OB. Like, I was very surprised by what they were able to do with this character, the visual effects of the character, again, his narration. I loved everything Mr. Nobody had to do with this show. Speaking of still in the scene, even when I had Jane and when I had, Cliff in the scene, whenever Mr. Nobody was on that screen, he just stole the show for me personally. I hope we get more from him in the season 2. I won't give too much away until I get into the spoilers, but Alec as Mr. Nobody, again, hey, Mark Hamill, one of the best Jokers, if not the best, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mark's doing some, other movie or TV show and he might not be able to voice a Joker in the future. Alec Tudyk can do the Joker. I mean, such a great voice actor, but also just a great actor in general. And Mr. Nobody, phenomenal character. The rest of Doom Patrol, I liked. Cyborg had his moments. Him and his dad dynamic. Him, the man versus machine dynamic that you get with Cyborg in the comics. Worked to a certain extent. I wasn't too hard on the show with the visual look of Cyborg because it's a TV show, so they couldn't go crazy with the visual effects, kind of like what Justice League did. But I like Cyborg. Niles, the chief, played by Timothy Dalton, who has a problem with having daughters. And if you guys, my Penny Dreadful fans out there, you know his relationship with daughters and everything in that show. But he was fine. I'm really interested to learn more about Niles and kind of his heroic side and maybe his not so much heroic side, but I like Timothy Dalton and what he did in this show. And then you have other characters rounding out the crew that, I'll talk about them more in my negatives, but I like the actors that played, Rita and also that played Larry. But we'll talk about them a little bit. But as a whole show, I thought the show had heart. It was very funny, very R-rated, very unexpectedly R-rated, from the violence and sex to drugs, all this stuff. I did not expect that. I know that the DC app, I know Titan's a little bit darker, but this show is like on another level in regards to kind of the matureness of this show. And that was a welcome to the show because it just caught me off guard. So those things really work for me. The 15 episodes, I hope, and I haven't looked it up yet, I do hope that season 2 is a little bit more slimmed down. It's not as kind of filler as you might get with a CW show, but there were definitely some episodes, and I'll talk about it here in a bit, that I just was not invested in the story at all that they were trying to tell. But all in all, it was a show I really liked. I didn't love it, but I would recommend you all give it a chance. If you haven't already, check it out on the DC app if you have it, or if you have HBO Max, give the show a watch before season 2, and then we can all talk about it and have a good time. But I would recommend you all check it out because I really had a good time with the show. So transitioning into my criticisms, and I'll talk about it more in the spoiler half, but Rita and Larry, I like the actors, I like the performances, but their stories just weren't that interesting for me, and we don't really get the biggest resolution with the Rita character. We get the understanding of what's going on with Larry, but as I had mentioned, the 15 episodes, there were definitely like 3 or 4 episodes that just felt way too stretched out of the storyline. You're learning about these characters, learning about their power and abilities, you're learning about them as people, they have to band together as a group, but I don't know, man, whenever Larry and Rita kind of had their offshoots and their kind of side stories or subplots, that stuff, I get the point of what they were going for. You know, Larry, I don't want to give too much away, but what he was going with his family and find out who he is as a person, I get all that, but some reason it seemed like Larry was just always down and out. Like he was this, U.S. Air Force guy who would just take the first plane to go, stare at risk and danger in his face. But when he was in the present day, I know what he was fighting inside of himself, literally inside of himself. But I just felt like the character was just kind of one note throughout the entire season. There were some moments of there here and there with Larry and Mr. Negative Man that kind of shine, but for the most part, that character just didn't resonate with me and just didn't land with me from a story perspective, and just wasn't that interesting in my personal opinion. But I do look forward to see what they do with Larry in season 2. Then you have Rita Farr, who I love the commitment to the character, that she literally voiced this 50s, this 40s famous actress throughout the entire show, and seeing her kind of her up and coming, her storyline. Not that interested in her at all, like just her personal story from being an actress to having her accident, and also just kind of looking up her power set, and I hope they explore this in season 2 with more of the elastic girl aspect and becoming bigger and smaller, and they really didn't touch on that much in this season. But those two characters were definitely my weakest point of the show, and would love to see what they do with them in season 2 and give them more to do. And I had mentioned Mr. Nobody as being one of my favorite characters, top 3 characters, but we just didn't get enough for Mr. Nobody. Like literally he's in maybe 5 episodes, and those five episodes were great. He narrates the whole season, but I really want to dive deeper into Mr. Nobody. Yes, I know it's not a Mr. Nobody show, it's a superhero show, you gotta learn the superheroes, and I hope we get more of Alec in season 2, but it was just too far in between when we saw Mr. Nobody and everything that he's doing through kidnapping Niles, and then, learn a little bit about his backstory and really looking up his power set. I get it, but the show really doesn't dive that deep into his power set because he literally seemed like he was unbeatable at times. But I really hope that we get more of Mr. Nobody in season 2. I'll just kind of leave it at that for my non-spoiler half of my cons. But all in all, I'm going to dive deeper into my spoilers, but my criticism of the show is definitely the lack of character development between Rita and Clay and Larry, and also wanting more of Mr. Nobody, and also Niles. I don't know how to feel about Niles. Timothy Dalton, phenomenal actor, but the understanding of what he did and certain reveals that we get, I just don't know if they set with me perfectly. But again, I'll dive into that a little bit longer. But those are just some of my non-spoiler criticisms. So that's my thoughts, pros, cons for my non-spoilers on Doom Patrol Season 1. Give it a shot, and when you do, let me know what you thought of it. And when you do, come back and watch this video, because we're going to get into the spoilers here. So spoiler warning for Season 1 of Doom Patrol, and kind of talking about Season 2. So as I had mentioned, we find out about Niles, right? Number one, we have that kind of, so I mentioned earlier, there were some episodes that felt that they were lingering on. They were just too drawn out. Those episodes were episodes, I want to say 8, 9, 10, and 11. Those 4 episodes to me were so boring, in my personal opinion. Just my personal opinion. The story, that was when we had Jane, who became Karen, and she wanted to marry that guy. And off of that, she passes out, and we get Jane back, and then, the underground was cool, seeing Cliff get her from the underground, but then everything else from like the beer hunter, Cyborg and his grid and everything. We get Rita trying to help him out. We get Larry dealing with Mr. Negative Man and going back and accepting who he is as a person, his family. All that stuff to me was just so boring, guys. Like, I love The only thing that really stood out for me in those 4 episodes, because it was like a 4 episode arc, I enjoyed the underground stuff. I slightly enjoyed Niall's backstory with the cave woman, who we'll talk about here, and the child Dorothy and her power set. That stuff worked, but it was just like, again, when it came to Larry's story, when it came to Rita's story, I just feel like it was just so underdeveloped. It's not for a sense of their powers were kind of weird and out there. It's just that those characteristics in their backstory just wasn't interesting. It just felt so repetitive. Everything with Larry and his wife and Larry and his boyfriend just became so dull. We learn about the Bureau of Normancy and all that stuff, and that kind of was highlighted in Larry's story. But everything else was just kind of, like I said, redundant, repetitive, and they just kept doing the same beats over and over with Larry and who he is as a person, and really not knowing what the power set of Mr. Negative is. So that was kind of my criticism with the Larry character and just kind of his repetitive storyline. And again, I appreciate with what Rita Farr did as Elastigirl, as his former Hollywood actress, but her wanting to be a star and the baby thing and the girl killing herself, that stuff just took way too long to figure out what happened with her. Once we find out what happens to her, it was just like, okay, I feel bad for what happened, but like, did we really have to take 8-9 episodes to figure that out? And then I talked about Niles again, his whole story with the cave woman who's immortal and has the wolf demon again. I don't know much about Doom Patrol, so a lot of those characters, offshoot characters, Mr. Flex, the guy that was at the school, all those characters are brand new characters to me, so I don't know their origins, but that was like the only thing of Niles that was somewhat interesting, is when he did kill that guy to protect his wife, and I knew that he was gonna have a daughter with her, as we found out in the season finale, or before the season finale. But I don't know, Niles just, I saw that twist coming a mile away that he knew about. He created, the incidents that happened to our main crew, the Doom Patrol. I'm still interested to know how he was able to get all that to happen, the race car and his daughter, everything that happened with Cliff. I'm pretty sure Jane, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Jane was born with those abilities, so I don't know what he did. He probably got her locked up in the institution. He probably had some hands in that. I don't know how he was able to know that Larry was going to drive into that negative kind of dimension and become who he was. So I'm very confused, and Rita, I'm very confused on how he was meticulous enough and detailed enough to have those accidents happen to them. I hope that they dive deeper into that in season 2, because that really didn't make that much sense to me. And then another thing that was just kind of CW-ish. Again, this isn't a CW show, but it had those tropes where it was the villain of the week, right? I don't know why Mr. Nobody just wasn't the villain, which he was the overarching villain, but I don't know why we had the decreator, the creator stuff, which was fun, but it was resolved so easily. That was a world-ending type of threat. We had the whole Nazi crew. I imagine they'll come back in season 2, but that was easily resolved. The whole kind of running joke with the guy with the 2 heads. Again, I don't know if it's a Doom Patrol, a pivotal character in the comics, but the guy with the head and the raptor head, that stuff, the beer hunter, Mr. Flex, that's a lot of those subplot storylines just wasn't interesting to me. I know that's the weird, wonky, crazy side of the show and what makes them so weird. Like I said, the X-Men-ish type of characters. But a lot of that stuff just wasn't working for me. The first half of this show, the first 7 episodes, I loved. And like I said, once we get to 8, 9, 10, 11, I like 12, 13, 13 was good. The finale, or let's say 14 was good. The finale wasn't that great. So half of the show I love, half of the show I didn't hate, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first season. So I hope that this new season, which like I said, I haven't looked it up yet, but I'm going to look it up now. That's phenomenal. So season 2 is going to have 9 episodes. I think that's going to be perfect, because I did think that this season just felt too long and it had too many filler moments to make things kind of move on. They should have just had, very similar to season 2, maybe 10, 11 episodes, but 15 episodes was just way too much, because it got way too drawn out, and just some things just wasn't interesting to me. So transitioning into what I thought about that trailer, seeing it, I finally watched it literally before I got on this review here and this discussion. I'm excited to see what they do, because we got Dorothy, who seems to have unlimited powers and can change things. And the whole, like I said, I didn't like that finale with the rat and the roach and how they trapped Mr. Nobody into the painting, but we'll see what happens. But it looks like the first episode is going to, we're going to get our characters that are still miniature characters, shrunken characters, and see how they resolve that. But really interested to see what happens with Dorothy, what we find out about her mom, is she still alive? Because obviously we're going to find out why Niles wants to be and how he's going to be, how he's become immortal, and why he's still alive for being so old. So that's some stuff I'm interested in finding out. Cliff and his daughter, or is he going to still go for his daughter after, everything with the watch and the alligator? Very interested to see where that goes. Obviously, Jane, is she going to accept the apology that Niles might offer to her? Is she going to still hate him? It'll be really interesting to see more of the characters inside of Jane. And then, like I said, I really want to, love the Rita character and Larry character. So I hope that their power sets are expanded. It looks like, she's now portraying the Elastigirl, and kind of because her power set is like, Mr. Fantastic and, someone from like The Incredibles in regards to her power set, or the Ant-Man, say, because in the comics she gets big and she gets small. So it'll be really interesting to see if they dive into that, and then learning more about the Negative Man and seeing what his power set is, and seeing if Larry can last longer without him being inside of him. So those two characters I'm really keeping an eye out for. And then Cyborg, I really want to get more of the cybernetic aspect of Cyborg, get more of his relationship with his dad. I felt that stuff was kind of forced at times, but the actor was fine. The visual effects, again, it's a TV show, so I don't expect it to be like a Justice League level, but I hope that we get more of Cyborg in the season, and he gets more of his abilities. He becomes more of the comic book character, and more of these obscure characters. I'm really interested to see who cameos in this season. Will we get any of the Titans characters? Again, I haven't watched Titans, but I'm wondering, I know Beast Boy has a run that he is part of the Doom Patrol, so it'll be interesting to see if we get him in the mix. I love all the Easter eggs from the Justice League characters: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman. So I wonder what kind of jokes and things of that nature, Shazam, that they're going to bring into the mix. So I'm really looking forward to season 2. I want some more character development in Rita and Larry. I hope we get Mr. Nobody coming back. I'm wondering if Dorothy's going to be the main villain this season, or if it will be Mr. Nobody, and getting more of the Normancy, Bureau of Normancy, and the whole Nazi group, see if they come back in the mix, and get more of those unanswered questions from Niles, and kind of how he was able to set that situation up for those accidents to happen. But all in all, at the end of the day, I will be watching the first 3 episodes. I believe will be premiering on Thursday on the 25th, and I'm going to be reviewing it each week, because I do like these characters. Like I said, I love Jane, I love Cliff, I love Mr. Nobody, and I want to love the whole group. So I'm hoping season 2 makes me fall in love with these characters as much as a lot of you all have. So that's my thoughts on the show, what I hope to see, kind of previewing season 2, and I'm really looking forward to it. So as I said up top, if you've stuck around for this 21 minutes or however long this video is going to turn out to be with my outro here, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, comment your thoughts on Doom Patrol season 1, what you hope to see in season 2, and kind of all your pros and cons of the season so far, in season 1 at least. So thank you guys for watching this video. Keep an eye out for some content I have coming up this week. Like I said, I will be reviewing the first 3 episodes of Doom Patrol season 2. Of course, my normal movie reviews, other TV reviews, and there's some more watch-alongs, Ask Me Anything coming up this Saturday, I should say. So definitely make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of that content. Hope you all are staying safe, and we'll see you soon.